I hope you can hear me now, and welcome back for the second half, everybody. My name is Ratnaprabha, and we're going back into our theme, and our theme is the four great reminders from the Tibetan tradition. And of these reminders, the one that we had a talk about a couple of weeks ago was impermanence. And this talk was a very interesting one by Maitri Nita. Now, what Maitri Nita, one of the things that she did was she told a story from the time of the Buddha, very relevant to impermanence and loss, but she updated it and brought it out here into the Holloway Road. And I thought I'd remind you of that story, or tell you it if you haven't heard it before, but I'll do it back in the original. Now, a lot of people have heard the story. It's the story of Kisa Gotami, but some of the details you may not be aware of. So even if you heard the story before, do listen out for it. But just to take a step back from that, we're looking at impermanence. And my own teacher once said that if you wanted to sum up Buddhism in one word, that one word would be impermanence. And the reason for that is that the continual flow and change of experience is the most positive aspect of Buddhism, really. It's saying that that flow is something that you can engage with. You can improve things. You can make the world a better place. You can improve your own life as well. But our own response to impermanence can often be one of resisting it because it feels like loss. It feels like we're getting older. Our friends are moving away or even dying, that things stop working, our technology, we need a new laptop, all that kind of stuff. And impermanence often seems like a big difficulty. It seems like a threat. But the reason for this, according to Buddhism, is not because there's anything wrong with the fact that things are constantly flowing and changing. The reason that impermanence seems such a threat and such a problem is because we hold on. It's because of clinging, and clinging is the big issue. And this is what meditation and many other Buddhist practices can help you with, is in a way to enter the stream of your life rather than sort of trying to sort of dam that stream and trying to stop things changing. Yeah, does that make sense? So this is a really interesting area. And anyway, everything in Buddhist practice is underlined by the reality of that flow, of that constant change. But it's also, includes difficult elements, and coming to terms with loss and coming to terms with death and all that kind of thing is one of those difficult elements that we tend to try and avoid. Probably, if you're anything like me, you probably try to avoid it, try to stay away from being aware of those difficult challenges of life, which are often to do with losing things, things getting worse as it seems, finding something wonderful and then it slips through our fingers because we, oh good, I've got it now, I'll hold on to it, I'll keep it as it is. Even our attitude to ourselves, we feel, oh yes, I know who I am, I'm this person, I'm like this, I like marmalade for my breakfast, that's the kind of person I am. And then things change, or the fact that we're holding on to that causes us problems. So this is the basis for the story that Maitri Nita told us a couple of weeks ago. And so according to this, I say it's a story. I mean, this is a real person story, I should say, but it's simply an event that was related from the time of the Buddha to do with one of his disciples. And her name was Kisa Gotami. Kisa Gotami means skinny Gotami. And in those days, in India, being skinny, if you're a supermodel nowadays, being skinny is fantastic. But in those days, being skinny was not regarded as attractive. You should be voluptuous. You should be well fed. That showed that you were someone who was worth getting to know. And not only was Kisa Gotami skinny, that was one issue she had. She was a woman in a time when it was very difficult to be a woman. And even worse possibly than that was that she was low caste. And the caste system in India was and is very, very oppressive. It's basically racism by another name. And in fact, it is interesting that in the Buddhist scriptures, you'll get a lot of mentions of caste oppression. And quite often the low caste people are called dark or black. So you had the same kind of racism going on in ancient India that we have nowadays. And she was the recipient of this racism. And on top of that, she was impoverished, as many low caste people, of course, were. So she was very poor. So she had a lot to cope with, Kisa Gotami. A lot to challenge, but she was a resourceful woman. She was meeting this, and she also met the love of her life, she met a man who was high caste, and they got married, much against the will of his family. The family tried to stop it, but he was determined, she was determined. So they got married. So now at last she's happy. You know, she's married a comparatively wealthy man, high status, high caste, and she's found love, all that kind of thing. So everything's going really well. So you can see how impermanence is coming in here, can't you? That she goes from a really difficult state to a really much more positive state. But there is one issue, again, in ancient India, and I think it's still the case for many people in modern India. If you get married, you have to move in with the family of your husband. This is the custom. And in fact, it's interesting, the Buddha, in one of his teachings, he lists some particular difficulties that women face. Do you know this one, the 5 difficulties? And one of the difficulties that women face is having to move in with your husband's family. I mean, of course, if they're nice people, that's fine, but it means you're leaving your own, you know, loved ones, your relatives, your mother and father and so on behind, and moving in to an extended family, maybe in a distant place. You don't know them very well. So that was another challenge for Kisa Gotami, but it was much worse than this because the family treated her really badly. They were very resentful about the son marrying a low caste woman. The racism came in quite strongly. She was just treated like dirt, and she was really miserable. It was very, very difficult for her. She didn't want to, you know, she didn't want to lose her husband, obviously, but she had no choice. She had to stay there. So she was quite unhappy. But then things turn again. Impermanence comes back again. She gets pregnant. She has a little boy. And this is completely unexpected to her, but everything completely changed when she had the little boy, because suddenly she had done her job, you know, as a mother by producing an heir to the family. And so the family completely changed in the way they treated her. They started sort of, you know, cosseting her, looking after her, saying how wonderful she was. And she had the baby as well. And she obviously, you know, as any or nearly every mother will, she loved the baby. She spent all her time with it. Everybody would come and admire it. What a lovely little boy, you know, and she'd take it around with her and they'd play together and people would come and she'd make more friends and so on. So again, her life had switched again. Everything was absolutely wonderful. And she thought, oh, thank goodness for that. You know, my life is good. But of course, all of this goodness revolved around the baby. It revolved around her having this little baby. And this is where absolute trauma strikes. This is the tragedy in the story. Because she took the baby to an orchard, a neighboring orchard, and you know, she didn't have to work. She was living with a wealthy family, so she was just playing in the orchard with the baby. The baby was playing around. There were butterflies, you know, there were the trees. I think there was mango trees or something like that, and everything was lovely, you know. And she was sitting there, and then a snake came and bit the child, according to some versions of the story. And you know, of course, she's horrified. She managed to get the snake off, but the boy has been bitten. It's a poisonous snake, and the baby died quite quickly. But she neither knew nor accepted this. You know, she picked up the baby. The baby, you know, was going color because of the snake bite and so on, you know, then became limp. And she thought, what has happened? What's happened? What's happened? What's happened? And she thought, I must find a cure for the baby. I must get it well again. Somehow, in a way, it may be that this incredible trauma, plus the fact that the baby was now the center of her life, the only reason her life was worked out, but she just could not accept the fact the baby had died. So she went around talking to people, frantic, absolutely frantic, with worry and grief, saying, can you help me? Look, my baby's really ill. And some of them just ignored her. Some of them were kind, but could do nothing. And some of them were frank and would say, look, I'm afraid that child is dead. You know, I'm really sorry, but I'm afraid it is. But she would not accept this. So she went around and eventually she went to an apothecary or a chemist. She went to the chemist, basically, which I suppose if you're looking for a cure, that's where you go, isn't it? You know, got a very sick baby. You got first was saying, look, I don't think I can help you. Oh, please, 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 please. And the apothecary was a disciple of the Buddha and said, well, he's known as the great physician, the Buddha, because he cures people's ills. So maybe he could help. So she decided, I'll go and see the Buddha, who by this time, is a well-known and has set up Buddhism, has set up meditation and so on. So she goes, interrupts him. He's giving a talk. It's a bit like someone comes in here, wailing and sort of, please, please, please help. She interrupts him, but he's very kind about it. And she says, please, can you do anything to cure my baby? And he looks at her, realizes quite quickly, sums up what's happened, realizes that she's not going to accept. Look, come on. So he said, look, I might be able to help. And she said, right, what can you do? And she says, I need a medicine. And the medicine will be made with a pinch of mustard. Just need a pinch of mustard, that's all. So great, I'll get you a pinch of mustard. And he said, wait, before you go, when you get the mustard, it has to be from a house that has not seen death. It has to be from a house that has not seen death. She says, oh, God, well, okay, no problem, I'll ask them. So she's gone off to get the message. She's still got the baby, holding it, she's going from house to house in the town where they live. And she's, can I have a pinch of mustard, please? And I mean, this is very little to ask. Mustard is one of the main spices being used in India. So no problem. She goes, of course, I get your pinch of mustard. And she's, oh, by the way, has this house seen death? Has anybody died in this house? And the first house she comes to, they say, well, yeah, my granny died only last month. Second house she comes to, they say, well, we lost 2 children, actually, to that outbreak of yellow fever that went around. And of course, you can imagine what happened. She goes from house to house. Every single household she visits, about traditional Indian society, not where people are constantly moving into new flats all the time. Every house that she visits, they have seen death. And she slows down as she goes, and she starts to think, and she starts to realize that this is not something that has just affected her. And she says this is an affliction. I'd never realized it before. This death, loss is an affliction that hits everybody, not just me. And I've been faced with it. She realizes I've lost my baby. It's awful, but this is a common, and compassion arises in her. And she feels I'd really like to sort of go beyond my own concerns and be interested in others. And so she goes back, she goes down to the cremation ground, and she gives her baby a proper send-off. She says some verses and poetry over the baby. She, as we would do, she buries the baby, or I'm not quite sure exactly what she does in the cremation ground. Maybe she cremates the baby. And she looks around there. She sees all the memorials, the tombs, even maybe the ashes of the old funeral fires that they have there in India. And she sees again, this is something, this death is so common. And in fact, what the people in the houses had said to her, I forgot this bit, is they said, the dead are many, the living are few. The dead are many, the living are few. And so in many houses, there were more people who died there than there were still alive. And so she goes back to the Buddha, and he notices she no longer got the baby with her. And he says, have you brought me there? And she says, I was slightly break down at this bit because it's quite moving. She says, the mustard has done its work. Just give me a refuge. So the give me a refuge means I need something beyond my own immediate needs, my own immediate life. I need something that will give meaning to my life more than that. And I would like to become a follower of the Buddha. I'd like to become a disciple of yours and follow you and learn meditation, go for enlightenment, and try to practice compassion. And so she actually became a well-known teacher. I'm not sure how the time's going. I've probably been going on for too long, but there is another little story about her, which I hope I've got this right. Many women in those days would, when they gained enlightenment in the Buddha's Sangha, in the Buddha's following, they would write a poem. And it's amazing. We've still got a collection of quite a few of these poems known as the Therigatha. And her poem is in there that she wrote. And it seems that she was practicing, she was meditating, she was trying to come to terms with impermanence. And it's said, I think, that she was washing her feet in a stream. She was washing the dust off her feet in a stream. And she watched the dirt being carried away by the water. And at that moment, she gained enlightenment, sort of a Zen experience of enlightenment, I suppose. And she wrote a little poem about this, which you can still find. And she then became a great teacher in her own right, and a number of her own disciples also wrote poems and wrote verses in praise of her as Kisa Gotami.